Hello, hello. Hi, everyone.
Hello,
Welcome
hello.
to the Wisdom Club podcast. I have Mr. Justin Stoddart here, and I'm super excited for this. We got a new format here of our streaming, and so we love the new format. And Justin, how are you, man?
I'm good, buddy. It's good to see you. Thanks for the opportunity to come on your show.
Yeah, of course, of course. You are one of my favorite people because I see you very consistent and very active out in social media, and um, I always look up to how you are always, taking information and taking action from it. And this is because we hang out at some of our mastermind groups, and I just love your execution, man.
Thanks. It's funny because being on the other side of that, I feel like there's so many things that I want to be implementing that I haven't yet. So it's nice that at least to some it appears that I'm applying. But I have found from a selfish standpoint that if I hear something, it's information, and it doesn't become knowledge until I do something with it. And if I do good with it, that becomes wisdom. So I'll tie that in. Actually, I learned that my freshman year in college had the president of the university, gentleman I look up to tremendously, and he taught the definition of wisdom. He said there's information and there's knowledge when you do something with it, and when you use it for righteous good purposes, then it becomes wisdom. So maybe fitting for our conversation today about applying information, applying knowledge for good things.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. So many of people that I have interviewed and people I know I haven't interviewed, as, just like you, have a lot of wisdom because you've accumulated, you've taken in information, you've done it, and then it's something that you can repeat and do again. But, uh, we have to figure out how to a way to transfer that to someone else so they can, work on the process, as well. And I heard, I hope I don't butcher this, but I heard something really interesting is that if you, and I'm trying to remember where I heard it from, but if you hear it, you forget it. If you do it, you remember it. If you teach it, you understand it, right? And so,
Yeah.
that's basically what it is, right? Like we got to run through that. If it's something that's important enough to you, you don't just listen to it, but you actually take action, and then from that action, you teach it to someone else, and you remember it forever. So that's a lot of what we strive to do here at the Wisdom Club. Um, you have a very interesting current family life as well as a background. For the people that don't know you, can you tell everybody like kind of your growing up that has influenced your business life today? From a very young age.
Yeah. So my parents were both entrepreneurs from a young age. We had maybe a normal sized family, three kids. There were three of us, and my parents both were just simply high school educated. And statistically speaking, the way they started off, which wasn't necessarily the greatest start, where they were expecting a baby in high school. Like most, if you look at that story, statistically, it's going to be a bit of a train wreck, right? It's going to be welfare case. Like that's just how it's going to end up. My parents were different in the sense that although they didn't have a good start, and maybe this speaks to anybody out there that feels like maybe they didn't get a good start, they went on to build incredible businesses. They were married for 22 years, were absolutely incredible parents, and they've gone on to find spouses that were even a better match for them, both of them. So they're super happy, which makes me happy. And my mom built a seven-figure business. My dad still owns and runs an eight-figure business. And I share that because it's so impressive to me to see somebody start from literally all odds stacked against them, and to be able to go on and over time create something special and make a great impact in the world. So I knew that I wanted to do some things just like my parents when it came to growing a business. I also knew that there were some things that I wanted to do differently when it came to marriage. So my wife and I, we met in college. I was a student at Brigham Young University and was studying construction management. She was in the nursing program, and she had come from a big family. There were 7 kids in her family, and I always thought big families were so beautiful, so cool. So we set out from early in our marriage that we were going to have 6 kids. People kind of laughed at us like, yeah, we'll see. We'll see after the first one. We'll see after the first 2. And sure enough, after every baby, we felt like I still think there's another child for us. And we got to 6, and both of us are like, yeah, we're done. We're totally done. And it was unanimous. And we love our 6, and we're still at this really cool spot in life where they're all under our roof still. So we have a 16-year-old. She's taking driver's ed as we speak. And then we have a 5-year-old who will be going into kindergarten next year. So, it's kind of a glimpse in time where our kids are old enough to where we can go do some things with them, and they're all still under our roof. So we're absolutely loving life right now. We feel super blessed, and just family life's everything to us.
Yeah, it's always so interesting to me. I grew up in a family of 3 kids, like your parents, but we were not always together. I was with my grandparents, and my brother was with my father, and then my younger sisters was also with my father. So we were kind of separated, and then over time, as we kind of grew, my brother came to live with us and my mom, and then my sister is still in another country in Taiwan. And so it's our siblings are kind of like fragmented, and I always wonder what it would be like if we were always under the same roof for that entire time that we're growing up, as well as like into some of the adulthood, as some of the kids are nowadays. And so I think it's super fascinating to have a lot of kids nowadays. It's not very common. And also, having met your spouse at a younger age, you can afford to do that. Like a lot of people have kids, they start having kids in their mid 30s, late 30s. Well, they don't have the 10-year runway to get to have 6 kids. But it's I always say kids are such a blessing, and when you're done, when you're done. Right? Like you keep going till you're done. I had a coworker that had 10 kids in his family, and they were Mormons, and so it's just a big happy family. He's always that happy. Nothing ever shakes that guy, and I always wonder, like, oh, it's because he has so many kids that he has this wealth of patience and resilience in everything that he does. You feel that way?
Yeah, I think there is definitely some refining properties that come to you. You have to learn patience. You have to. And ask my wife, she's like, yeah, you're still working on that patience, especially with something like kids. But it's interesting you say that. Actually, in a book that I wrote, I talked about at one point, I was a coworker of mine was preparing to move. And she said, Justin, I'm moving. I know you had volunteered to come help me move when we move. She said, it's going to be this Saturday. I said, great. I'm going to bring a couple of my kids along to help. And she paused, and she kind of like went away quietly. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. She came back and she said, look, I don't mean to be offensive, but like there's going to be a lot of big furniture. There's going to be like a lot of stuff moving around. And we don't have a lot of time. And I just really appreciate it if you're not bringing them. I said, look, I totally hear what you're saying, but they're not coming for me to watch them. They're coming to help. She was like, all right, I trust you. She pulled me aside at the end. She's like, I don't know what you're doing, but those kids were so helpful. Now keep in mind, just before we got out of the car, like we are going to work today. We are here. It's Dad's pep talk, Dad's threatened before we like leave the car. But it was a proud moment. But it also brought on this aha that in the past, kids were seen as like you'd actually have a big family because you needed the help. Like you needed workers, right? You need people to like work the farm. And today, kids aren't seen as workers. They're seen as work. Like, oh my goodness, 6 kids, that's a lot of work. It's like, well, that or a lot of workers. It depends on how you raise them, right? And keep in mind, like we're far from being like the perfect parents. Like a lot of times our kids are work when they should be workers, and that's a constant challenge, right? Especially in today's entertainment era and age, there's so many opportunities for kids to be entertained. But I do believe that that's a key principle for parents is that kids shouldn't feel like work. Obviously, to some degree, yes, but like once they get to a certain age, like it ought to be a shared load, right? And that's the best way to actually produce great adults is to have them help out with adult responsibilities from early on. And so, when you get to a certain point, that's survival. You just have to do that, right? You can't do it all yourself, or you'll go
gotta
crazy.
learn. You gotta learn sooner or later. And I'm always a proponent of learning sooner. When I came to this country when I was 11, by the time I was 12 years old, I had a job. I was out, delivering newspapers on my bicycle, and I was doing that. And from an early age, we always were hard workers. And delivering newspapers back in those days, you had to get up at 4 in the morning. You got to fold everything up, put them in rubber bands. And if it was raining, you had to bag them. And then you had to load it all up, on your bike. And then, you got 120, households that you got to, deliver this to. And physically, was hard also. But we had to do that, 5 days a week to just make a little money. And I didn't use all that money for myself. It was always like, hey, this is money donated to our family. Now, when I needed money to go to the movies or go buy some food for myself or hang out with friends, like I would just ask for. And that's just the way we were. We contributed to the household, and then we worked for it, and then we also can get rewarded when we want to, do something for ourselves.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's so many great lessons in there, right? Even if you're running a business, right? Kind of the question becomes, it's about making everybody productive, because my kids are so much happier when they're productive, right? It's not even just like selfish of like, okay, I want to share the load, but it's like in their best interest when they're productive and they're doing things to contribute. There's like so much of the entitlement strips away, right? And they're so much happier. And I think we as humans are designed to be productive, and when we're not, we get restless, we get entitled, we get all kinds of stuff. And I think that there's some lessons in there for actually running businesses and teams as well.
Yeah, it's like your little employees.
Yeah, right.
But
Family
but
business takes on a whole new meaning.
I couldn't agree with you more, because we have to teach them, how to work. Like, we don't automatically learn how to work especially with all the distractions that kids have nowadays, with like electronics and things that they can do that could, get in trouble or, God forbid, get hurt or something like that, Yeah. And so when we teach them to work, they learn skills that they can use throughout, whether they're at school or, when they become, young adults, that they have a direction, they know what they're good at, they've experienced already to doing stuff. And I couldn't be agree with you more, on having, kids learn that. We weren't told and we weren't taught, but we always had a work ethic that we just did stuff. And luckily for us, we never got into trouble, and so we always had our learners. So you have I want to talk about what you're passionate about, which is, one, your Think Bigger podcast, and two, also the model that you coach a lot of real estate agents and entrepreneurs on. I'm happy for you to kind of chat about those two for those who haven't heard it or know about your podcast.
Yeah, great. Appreciate it. So 5 years ago, back before podcasting was cool, I had this crazy idea of like, I wanted to be around other people who were smarter than I was. And I thought, how do I do that? In fact, it was at the time, it was a business development strategy of how do I, because I was serving the real estate industry out of the title industry. And I thought, okay, they're top producing agents who I want to be in conversation with. But in the role that I'm currently in, they don't want to be in conversation with me, right? I'm a vendor to them, and they already have a vendor. And so I thought, well, what if I were to create a podcast and I were to interview them and show that interview to more people? Seems like that'd be a more enticing offer than, hey, let's just meet one-on-one. And it worked, but more importantly, it changed me. I thought, this is amazing. I love this. To get to go handpick out of society people that are achieving at the highest levels. One of which is you, Leo. You've been on my podcast. People like Leo, who I can spend time with and extract valuable wisdom and insight from them to share with my audience. And at the same time, I'm growing. So the Think Bigger Real Estate podcast came to life again 5 years ago. And I don't see myself ever not doing it. It's become not only the most powerful networking strategy that I've ever had to just connect with great people, but it's also become an incredible strategy of personal growth, just because I get to be around and delve into these interviews after the fact and really study them out and take principles that I can apply to my business and to my clients' business. It's really become quite the platform from so many aspects. So absolutely love it. So yeah, Think Bigger Real Estate is the name. It's really designed to help real estate agents go beyond success to significance, right? I teach that there's so many paths being taught and peddled, and most all of them work, right? If you'll do the work on leading to a successful business. Yet sometimes some of those methodologies and some of those paths don't leave time and space and don't begin with the end of mind of I actually want to have a significant life. I actually want to have very deep, meaningful relationships outside of my business. I want to be a very healthy, fit person, right? I want to have a deep, meaningful spiritual life, whatever that means to whoever is, that we're talking to, and to have, even relationships outside of business. So to me, success is only part of the equation, is to then take it to the next level, which is significance. And I believe that you can have both, that actually having a successful business, when done correctly, when you allow for space to still be there to pursue significance, can actually fuel, right, and even fund some of those significant endeavors in which you want to be a part of, including contribution back to the community. So yeah, that's really what the show's about, is helping people to pursue success not as an end destination, but on the way to a significant life, right? It's you go through success to get to significance, as opposed to success being the end all be all.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that phrase, success and significance. We have that purpose in our life, and if we don't have a purpose and we don't have a significance where we fit in the world, it's very you feel very lost, and we want to know where we belong. And I love that's part of your mission in the podcast, as well as mine, is really to bring people on that I've had great conversation with about their lives, about their journey, that I think it's interesting. I think everybody else should hear about it, as well. But a lot of times, just like our current conversation here, I also get to learn a lot that I didn't know, about you, and didn't know, about what it means. Even though I was on your podcast, I wanted to give as much value as possible to the audience, but I wanted to know more about you, which is why I really wanted to bring you onto the podcast. And so that's my goal as well, is my learning, but my learning turn into other people's learning, and they can find their place in life. And we don't always know what that is, but through discovery, through exploration, like, we get to find that. You have obviously had a lot more interviews than I have under the belt. We started this about 2 years ago, and we went out with a bang the first year of Monday through Friday, and interviewed a lot of people that I had amazing time with. And that was like right in the beginning of COVID, when everything shut down and everybody had a lot to say about what's happening, with COVID. But now we're back to normal lives, and this has continued. So I'm very, very grateful for people like you who are continued to do the podcast. And like you said, it's learning and growing, and helping people to significance is an ongoing thing. Like, we never stop. We wake up in the day and say, hey, this week, who can I bring on that can bring significance to my life, but also to other people? So if you guys are first hearing about this, please tune in to Justin's podcast at Think Bigger. It's for entrepreneurs, but also great leaders in their business. And if you're a real estate agent, like, you definitely have to, tune in, because just a lot of wisdom around the real estate agent, because it's just a hard job, right? So you went from working in title, you started the podcast, and so what's going on with you right now, business wise? You got your hands in the different things.
Yeah, so I'll rewind a little bit. Before that, I was a land developer and luxury home builder for about a decade, and in that process, it was a good business until obviously it wasn't in 2009, right? And at that point, I like to say that I was given the opportunity to exit the industry, right? I could have continued and continued to do remodels and kind of like whatever construction work was available during that time. But in my heart of hearts, even when business was humming, I thought to myself, I don't know that I love this. Like, it was okay, it was good, I was grateful for the income, but my passion really wasn't developing land. It was developing people. It really wasn't building homes. It was building businesses. And so I sought out to find some way in which I could do that. And again, was introduced into the title industry, which gave me the opportunity to sit knee to knee with real estate agents all day, every day, right, for almost 8 years, and really identify what are and help agents to work on their business was really kind of the strategy that I took. Is that the conversations I had were very consultative, and they were very focused on how do we help them to grow. And I began to realize that there were patterns that real estate agents were falling into that were causing them to not have enough. And of course, from those conversations, I was seeking out some of the top producing professionals in the real estate industry to be on my podcast, and really trying to extract from them, as well as the top producing agents that I was working with, how do we actually help agents navigate the current market. And so that really gave me kind of a front row seat into the industry. And finally, I loved it enough that I said, I need to be doing this full time. And so I started my own coaching company called Think Bigger Real Estate. And that's what I get to do full time now. I coach two groups of people. One are title reps, those that are business development professionals within the title industry. And then I also coach, residential real estate agents. So those are the two groups I coach. And again, I get to do that full time, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I talked to a lot of title people, and just like you said, they want and need us more than we need them. A lot of times they're just like, hey, give me some data, and that's it. And if there's some opportunity to have them do title insurance and things like that through a transaction, that's great. But at this time, the industry slowed down a little bit, just based on interest rates, and a lot of title as well as escrow people are having a harder time, in this downturn a little bit. And so I love that you coach the title people too, because I never thought about who teaches them? What kind of trainings do the title companies have for them? Because they have to do sales, but they also have to know, what to answer for real estate agents. So how do you typically coach title agents and help them?
Yeah. So actually teach them to not show up and act like a title rep. And really, again, I outline this in my book, is that there's a progression that, especially when you're working in kind of the B2B space, but as real estate agents as well, is that when you first step into a relationship and you're trying to get something from somebody else, right? You're trying to get their business. You're a solicitor. They don't know you. You're there to get something, and they're trying to put the walls up and dismiss you, right? And quickly you want to move up to kind of the next rung on the ladder, which is a vendor, where, hey, I'm entitled, I'm safe, I'm a good guy, I'd love to earn your business, right? And that's where most title reps stop, right? Is it like, hey, what can I get for you, right? And it's very much kind of a courier of information back and forth, and a friendly face, and maybe a liaison to value back at their title department. But oftentimes they aren't a real center of value in and of themselves, other than what corporate's kind of given them to offer to the agents. But if you were to sit down and actually have a conversation with them, it wouldn't feel like a peer-to-peer conversation. And so that becomes the next challenge, is how do you help a title rep move up to being almost an equal with the agent, where the agent says, hey, I respect your business, right? You're a top producer in your industry, I'm a top producer in mine, and we can share ideas back and forth, as opposed to the agent saying like, there's just not a lot of substance there, right? Other than what corporate gave you to give to me, there's not, or lists that you had me pull without really any thoughtful consideration of how to intelligently use these, how to strategically use this information, right? There just isn't a lot there. So once you move up that peer level, now there's really a great value exchange that can happen between both sides. And the ultimate rung on that ladder is to become a mentor and a leader to that particular real estate agent, where the real estate agent recognizes that I can get to my goals faster and more clearly and more easily with this title person being in my business, right? With them, every conversation I have, I'm learning something that I didn't know before that's accelerating the pace. So they really take on the role of being a business consultant to some degree, right? Where the conversations are intelligent, they're helpful, and they're things that they wouldn't have known otherwise. And so I teach title reps, again, how to take on that identity, to not just be another vendor, but really how to step into being a leader to the agents. And really, it's been said that oftentimes real estate agents feel like at a barbecue, they bring the food and everybody else brings a fork, right? It's like,
that's a great analogy.
It's like you've got all these other industries that are just waiting for the real estate agent to go get a client, and then they all show up. Okay, I'm here to help. Yeah. And I think it's teaching the title professional to actually go help bring the food, right? To actually bring strategies that help either that agent to bring more food more easily and or to even begin to supply some of the food themselves in the sense that they're bringing clients to the table through the efforts that they're sharing. So
Yeah,
kind of different
I
perspective.
interface with a lot of vendors because this is part of my business to try to um, surround myself with resources that at any given time that my clients might need, and of course title questions. We just had a a newlywed. They were given a condo by their parents, and it's titled under the parents, and so they want to figure out how to transition that so that they don't incur large taxes and stuff like that. And so we had gone through all that stuff with them because not only that property but another property they wanted to take over title, extract the equity out of it so that they can then rent it out and go take that equity, go buy their first home for themselves to live in, and then be instant landlords. And so of course there's a lot of moving pieces, but because of the vendor resources I'm always looking for, like if I walk outside my door right now and I see a gardener there and he's doing work, and I always ask him like, hey, where do you work? What kinds of stuff do you do? Can you do this? Can you do that? Just so that I can kind of vet them out a little bit to see if they could possibly be part of my vendor when my clients ask for something, because we're connectors in that way. But two main things that I always look for is I want to see beginning a vendor relationship. Are they communicative? Are they responsive? And are they collaborative whenever I ask them something? Or do they think I'm just too much trouble and I haven't earned any business from me yet? That's number one. And number two, can they help solve problems? Can they look at a situation that's in their realm of their industry and say, oh, we can solve this by doing this, we can solve this by doing that? Because a lot of times it's, well, this is all we offer and I'm not going to do anything further. And then those are very difficult, especially for like contractors, handyman, service people, for those. And if they can do that, then they're good in my book. And so same thing with title people. I have a couple of title reps that just pick up the phone, will answer my questions, as well as get on the phone with my client to say, hey, this is what's needed. What can we do here? What can we do there? And so they're always very gracious. And those are the people that I surround myself with. And that's what I would recommend for people if they are listening out there and they are these service people for the real estate industry, instead of just bring their fork, come and solve a problem of some sort, help open the door so we can bring the food in or something like that, and offer to have that. So I love that analogy.
Well, I love that you treat the industry differently, right? Most real estate agents that are common, their job starts when the contract's signed, their job ends, when the deal closes. And for you to take a more holistic approach, and this is what makes working with Leo Chen like magic, right? Is that you have somebody who can connect you with solutions to the challenges you face prior to and long after the fact, where you don't have just past clients, you've got people who continue to rely upon you. And I think not just does that enhance the before and after the transaction, but also during the transaction, it makes it so much more rich because again, many agents, they get so set in like, this is what I do, and here's my professional that I use. Whereas you're constantly looking to what's more valuable out there for my clients, right? What value can I find that I could then serve up to my clients? And I think that's just such a better approach. And I think agents like you will continue to deserve to be well paid and at the center of the transaction, because frankly, there's a return on investment every time you're involved in it, right? Sure, real estate agents make a fee, and many of them, that's an expense to the bottom line of people, that comes out of the equity of the home. Whereas when you work with somebody like you, it's a different story, because the value that you bring, not just during the transaction, but before and after, is so much more valuable than what you could ever charge, that it makes so much sense for people to choose wisely when they go to choose a real estate professional, and I again, that's why I'm such a fan of what you do and how you position yourself in the marketplace, because people get so much more than just an agent there to do a deal, right?
Yeah, and it's good for everybody. It's a win-win-win for all parties involved. I love when I get a chance to introduce them to someone and then I get to build a relationship with them. I strengthen my relationship with the vendors that I introduce, and the client, if you will get a service that may not necessarily from me. And by the way, I don't make a penny from that. I just wanted to introduce them to foster that relationship, and hopefully I can build a lifelong relationship with that client as well as with that title rep or with that vendor. And so we just continue to stack on all of these relationships that we can have, and I just thrive on that. I just thrive on being able to pick up the phone and say, hey, this is my guy. He's going to take care of this thing for you. Any questions, let him know. But I'm also here if you need something. But the homeowner today, the home seller, the home buyer, the home investor, the real estate investors of today, a lot of them, especially at the beginning stages, they get stuck. They get stuck. Well, I don't have a guide. I have this title question and I'm just sitting here on this title question for like 4 months, and not doing anything about it. And in the meantime, home values are going up. They're missing their opportunities and things like that. I hate seeing that for them. And so we want to just get them unstuck over and over. This is for the consumer, but also for the people that you talk to, for entrepreneurs. They get stuck at some point. And so they just do this level of service that they continue to do without leveling up, which is why I love kind of your model and what you talked about too. Hey, helping people not just do the basic levels of what everybody else does. It, hey, you need help, I'm here, kind of the thing. Or B, like, well, let me help you with a couple of things. And then C would be that valuable, vendor or that title rep that's always, offering to bring food instead of fork.
I love it. Great point.
So your coaching programs, talk to the real estate agents out there about your program and about the model that could help them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I believe in a model that's different maybe than what's typical, right? When you think of, and a basis based on, or I've created this based on what's worked for me. Again, I've been a coaching client for almost 2 decades now, and I know what help has really moved the needle for me and what hasn't, right? And I think there's a lot of do it yourself. And I almost compare that to like where you just buy a course. And for some people that works, and on some topics, it's even worked for me. But a do it yourself would be like, okay, here's a set of blueprints, walk into the Home Depot. Everything that you need is in this store. And it's either in the blueprints or there's nice professionals walking around here. And it's like, I just don't know if I have time to figure all that out, right? Yet at the same time, having like a very expensive contractor that meets with you one-on-one for an hour every week, right? Or the equivalent of that in coaching, most people can't afford that, right? The margin, especially in this market right now, it's not conducive to hiring, high-paid coaches. And so what I've created is a hybrid model. I call it Coaching Plus, where you have access to a group coaching model where there's other professionals that are learning very specific criteria and curriculum, which I'll share here in a second, together with access to me one-on-one. And we do that through some technology that allows me to be kind of a coach in their pocket as needed. They fill out a very simple dashboard that every week I'm reviewing and giving them specific feedback on that. So using technology, we can decrease the amount of time that I'm directly face-to-face with each person, but the time that I am with them, which sometimes is weekly, but it's very specific. We're not spending, minutes or hours trying to uncover what the issues are. We've created the dashboard that allows us to hyper-focus on, okay, here's where it's at. Let's have a conversation about this. And then there's ongoing communication through an app that makes it really easy to do so, voice to voice, where you're not typing back and forth. That way, again, I can be more of a very specific consultant solving the problems of the week, right? Solving where they went off flight plan and how to get them back on quickly so they still arrive at their destination on time. So that allows me to keep the costs down for them, and at the same time get the very specific customized help that they want and need. And as far as the curriculum goes, I teach what I authored in my book called the Upstream Model, which is really a way to scale and grow a warm market business. Oftentimes when you think of a warm market business, you think of sphere, right? Your friends, your family, past clients, and you have a certain relationship with these people and they want to refer you and they want to use you again. And then on the other side, you have cold market prospecting, which is here's 100 phone numbers, call, you'll probably talk to 10, 3 will actually want to meet with you, 1 will actually do business with you, right? So every day you're jamming the phones. And the challenge with that is, it's kind of the wake of people that are upset with you in the process and the collateral damage to your own, kind of to your own spirits after going through the calls of people who didn't want to talk to you. And so I don't believe in that model, but I do also see trouble in when it's just tied to your personal sphere. It's hard to scale that. It's hard to actually grow that because on average, that sphere will only produce, about a 10% return. In other words, out of every 10 people, 1 will either refer you or use you in any given year. So you have to take care of an enormous amount of people in order to really have a healthy growing business. And it gets difficult to, again, maintain not just success, but significance and actually have a life outside of real estate if that's the only model you subscribe to. So then the question becomes, okay, well, what do I do? Right? If prospecting may not be my favorite thing to do, and I feel limited if I only work by referral, well, what's the alternative? And the Upstream model teaches about that. And the concept is that there is a group of professionals in the marketplace right now who have their own database of people. And because of the work that they do, they're uncovering the fact that their clients are going to need a real estate agent next. So as I mentioned before, your average sphere, converts at about a 10% rate. The right, what I call upstream partner, in other words, professional partner, like a CPA, like a financial advisor, like a property manager, they can refer as often as one person referring as often as 10 times in a year. So instead of a 10% return on a database, you can have 1,000% return on a database. Everybody in that database can refer you 10 deals a year. All of a sudden, you're taking care of fewer and fewer of partnerships in order to get a lot more transactions. Really spend your time serving clients as opposed to sifting through big haystacks looking for the needles of clients. And so that's where people get their life back. That's where they can now pursue significance and success, is because it's not just a warm market business that is solely reliant upon sphere, but it's now also opens it up to a professional network, a highly curated professional network in which you're able to leverage these strategic referral partners that send you a lot of business. So that's what I teach, is how to think more kind of B2B, right? Which is kind of the world I come out of in title, of how to approach these professionals and unlock the massive referral opportunity that is there that we've uncovered and that we're helping our clients uncover. So that's really kind of the curriculum that we focus on is how to grow and scale a warm market business beyond just your personal sphere.
Yeah, I love both of those things. I'll speak to the model a little bit, but before I do that, I'm fascinated with the level of focus of the coaching that you are helping people with. Like you said, hey, we're going to be very specific, but I can also be available to you as little as you need, but as much as you need on a weekly basis, depending on what mark we're trying to hit here. And we're going to be very specific on what that focus and that goal is, so that I can get you to the next step and then to the next step. And we talk about it in our group, being that what people don't understand about either their growth or their learning, whether professionally or personally, there's always the do-it-yourselfers, the DIY people, right? And then you have people who just need a little bit of help for them to get it done. So you're going to do it with you, type of people that, hey, for this particular thing, I need somebody to just help me on 30% of it, and I can do the 70%. But if I don't have that 30% person, I get stuck. It doesn't go anywhere because it requires 100% to actually get that thing ticked off. And then you have the, do it for you, people, which is basically, hey, tell me what you want, and then we'll go get it done. And here's how everything's going to look. And I think your model or your coaching model kind of fits around, some of those things, so that people can actually, get unstuck in various ways. In our industry as a real estate agent, we have seemingly more and more clients now are do-it-yourselfer, and they're poor do-it-yourselfer, unfortunately. It's a part of the industry. I would love to get people to understand that this isn't something you can do yourself. You can't just look at Zillow and think like, I can just shop online on Zillow and I can find a home, and then I'll go and walk into my bank, and then when I find the home, I'll go and ask for a loan, and then the bank is going to tell me wait 60 days, and then so by then the home's gone. And I just think that it's a very broken process of there's really no good effective do it yourself home buying process for people. There's not enough information to kind of fill in. As real estate agents, we have to do these transactions over and over, from before, doing, and after what happens. And I just wish people knew. I always tell clients, like, this is not something you can do. You're not going to try to do surgery on yourself, are you? And they always laugh and here, let me show you what you may not know, and you think you can do this yourself. And so I love what you're doing for people, is just kind of pinpoint that and the focus around that, because that's what we need in the coaching industry. You can't water things down and have a 6 months or 1 year coaching program and you move one needle, over one rung. If you can do that in 3 months, in 2 months, or something like that, those are the kind of coaches we need, not only in my industry, but all kinds of industries. And I think you talk really, really good about the upstream model, and I love for that to be more prevalent for everybody to know, because that's exactly what we were talking about earlier. Me being that person that can offer clients to many other different vendors and industries, so that I could be their upstream, right? Mm-hmm. And then hopefully in turn that they, as they're out there in the world, somebody said something that I can be their referral as well. So it's really a give and take, as well. And so I would encourage everybody out there who's watching to pick up Justin's book. We'll have the link in the comments and in the description there for you. But it is a model I think people overlook. They just kind of go into business and just work without thinking about, like, hey, these are the people. These are out of 50 people. These are the 5 people I need that are giving me business. These are the 5 people I'm going to just love on. I'm going to build a relationship with. I may give them business, or I may tell them what I do that's different that could really help their clients, so that we can, do that 10 times more business than the average 10%, as you say.
I love it. Yeah, there's really so much opportunity. I mean, as long as like consumers have a need, then there's opportunity. The challenge where I think professionals in general is where they get themselves in trouble is they pigeonhole themselves into this is the only need, this is the only concern that I can solve. But when we start to look more holistically at, okay, what is the client going to need prior to this? What are they going to need after this? And what's going to reduce complexity for them? How do I make this even easier for them? There's so much opportunity to improve complicated processes like the real estate transaction and others, if you just really put a different perspective on it. And many of those things that I've found, as I mentioned, my model teaches you how to get referrals from other professionals. And one of the best ways to make that happen is to begin to integrate the value that they bring to their clients into your client conversations and vice versa, right? So if you're sitting down to meet with clients and you've extracted current data and insight and tips from a CPA, and you can sample those and say, I meet regularly with a CPA, not about my money necessarily, but just about what people should be looking for in this environment. And here's a tip or two, right? What that's going to do is one, make you way more valuable to the client, number one. And number two, people are going to be like, oh, wow, I want to learn more about that, which is a great opportunity for you to create a referral flow to the CPA. Meanwhile, they're doing the same thing in their practice, right? Giving a tip or two about real estate, which creates an opportunity to create a referral flow, the other way. And all of a sudden, these professionals that have their own warm market, databases are able to really not only serve those people at a higher level, but they're able to really begin to open up the flow of introductions. So,
yeah, it's really about scaling. It's really about scaling the referral business. My mom, who's been a real estate agent for over 35 years, never had an assistant her entire life. Never had an assistant. Never had an agent work under her team. She was just a solo agent for that whole time. And you imagine, nowadays we have so much technology to help us through the transaction. But back in the day, you had to show up for everything. You had to show up for the inspection. You had to show up for the appraisal. You had to show up for signings. You had to show
Signatures.
up for signatures from the listing signature, or all the way. I mean, and I just can't even believe how that's done. And aside from that, she never had help. And so I vowed that when I did my business coming from the tech world, that I would not be that kind of person, because she did great. She gave all of us a great life, and we all did very well financially because of all the hard work that she did. But at the same time, there was a sacrifice. There was a sacrifice of the time with the family, and things like that. During the holidays, she would still pick up her phone. She would have 3 flip phones at one time, on her wrist, and at any given time that one of those phones would ring, she would pick it up and then she'd go, okay, I gotta go. And so understanding that, we really need to just kind of systematize some of these things so that we can scale it. And I wish that she knew about the model, because she knew so many vendors that she rely on for all of her transactions. And if she was able to leverage that, she could have been, a lot more successful, and also more scalable to her business, and be able to have more time, for herself, for the family. But I couldn't imagine what she does, and I vowed that I wouldn't, be that kind of person. There's still agents out there that do that, very, very single agent, but there's only so much time in a day. And when we can scale something like this, a lead generation referral model, I'm all for it.
That's awesome. What a lady. What a gal.
Yeah, I wish I could have her on the podcast, but that would probably never happen.
It's like, a what? A pod what?
All right. Well, Justin, it's been amazing having you on. As per tradition, we always have our guests share a quote that they would like the world to know. Would you share your quote with everyone?
Yeah. And I believe this entirely. And it's everything you want in life, both in income, in independence, and an impact, is on the other side of you learning to think bigger. So.
Yeah, that's when you think about it, it really is a big deal. I talk about it in my podcast with other guests that we are all one decision away from a completely different life. So if you thought bigger, and you had this one decision that you made about your life, it can completely change everything. I've had many. I'm fortunate to have many in my life. Starting this podcast, right at the start of the pandemic was one of them, and allowed me to, have this time with you, and have a time with many of my guests who are lifelong friends and lifelong entrepreneurial partners. And so I'm just very grateful. So with that, we'll close out. Thank you so much, Justin, for being on here and sharing all the wisdom that you have with us, and your business models and your coaching program, which I think everybody should check out to get unstuck, wherever they are, and then think bigger. And then lastly, of course, check out the podcast, at least listen in, because Justin does an amazing job, with interviewing and getting great podcast guests on. All right. Thank you very much. And we'll see you again later.
Thanks, everybody.